I really take on board the decision making in the business, very seriously. And so I do give myself a lot of anxiety I second guess myself a lot, and as to, whether I have made the right call on something. And I think it feels like at the moment, you're just always at a crossroads of, I could go that way, or I could go that way. I could decide to grow, or I could, consolidate and just make sure the core base of the business is really, really strong.
Welcome and welcome back. Hi, Florian. How are you doing?
Hello, Mario. Doing well as always.
Today I have a good morning question for you. As it is early morning, we're all drinking coffee, and I know that you're addicted too. So if you would roast your own coffee, Florian, imagine you have a coffee roastery. Which direction would your plans be? Which direction would you go?
First of all, I think everybody wishes to have his own coffee roastery at home. But since I'm an espresso lover, I would roast a nice espresso for myself. Full body, not too much acidity.
I know you don't like this.
No.
We need to talk about that with our guests. So today we have a very special guest and a friend. We have Laura Harper-Hinton. She's the co-founder of Caravan. Caravan was founded in 2010. It's not just a restaurant company, but also a coffee roastery and a coffee retail company. They now have 8 stores in London, 1 in Manchester, and 3 more coffee bars. We heard 30 million sales currently, quite an improvement since the newspaper articles we found, 2.5 million profit, 500 people, and proud B-Corp certified. Welcome, Laura. Good morning to you.
Hi. Nice to be on the show.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us. Yesterday evening, I did some more background checks, and I stumbled over your Instagram account, and I saw a posting of you climbing, like hardcore mountain climbing in Italy. And I was zooming into the picture to make sure that it's really you, but it was you. And I got really scared even looking at it. But the question I want to ask you, as an entrepreneur, there's several skill sets we have to have. And I think as a hiker too, is there any kind of, what can we learn from hikers, and what can you apply as an entrepreneur on hiking? Is there any kind of skill sets or traits which are useful, vice versa?
That's a really good question. And actually, I'm heading to Nepal on Wednesday to climb the Yala Peak, which is 5,800 meters. I'm going to more and more extreme measures to get myself out of my brain and get some time off from, the constant worrying and, questioning that we all do as entrepreneurs and founders of hospitality businesses. That trip was the first in what I have now said to myself I will do every year. And I think from my perspective, it's really difficult, as we all know, in this fast-paced world and running businesses and, being a CEO, to find time for yourself and to switch off. And that climbing off a cliff and climbing up a vertical waterfall for 3 hours was probably one of the most the best ways that I've found to do it. So I'm definitely going to be doing that every year, and Nepal's the next one. But as far as applying the principles, I think, of hiking and what that does for you, I think, like I said, our minds are just always so busy. And, I think slowing down and taking that time I'm taking 2 ideas with me that I want to ruminate on, and just to let the ideas just filter in, as opposed to just forcing thinking about things the whole time and trying to come up with the answers for things in a really hectic mind space. So that's the plan. I've got two
Did you come up with an answer on that climb? Did you have an answer? You don't need to share the answer, but did you have an answer?
So for that one, I didn't do it. This is my new thing for Nepal. And actually, I did an amazing charity cycle ride in Kenya, where I came up with. I decided I just wanted to think about innovation and creativity for the new Manchester site, and that was the only thing I sort of allowed myself to really kind of zero in on. And that was really successful. So it's my new mantra. But yeah, it's finding the headspace, I think, and the calm that hiking affords you. So yeah.
I will share with you afterwards offline my write-up because I did a 22 days hike here in Sri Lanka, not as extreme as you because I'm not in the good shape, but it was in a solitude hike, 22 days, and I also learned a lot, but I will share them. The next topic I want to pick is, Laura, is the topic of resilience. We just published a white paper, and the white paper is around how do entrepreneurs get from their doubt, their struggles, back into the driving seat. And one of the themes of the 9 things we found over all the 30 interviews we did was resilience. And I read in an article that you have been running an event company and you actually worked yourself up, bottom up. And you said you learned 2 things. One was stress management and one was resilience. So can you talk a little bit more what it means for you as an entrepreneur to apply that resilience, or maybe even share a story where you think that the skill set of you applying resilience helped you out of a crisis? Do you recall any difficult moment in your event career or in your restaurant career where resilience was the driving force of getting back into the driver's seat?
Yeah, I mean, resilience and stress management is something that I definitely have channeled my whole life, I think, but particularly was relevant with the events work that I did for 10 years when I first arrived in London. We were putting on events which were sort of, £5 to £10 million budgets. And it was one night and you had to get everything right, obviously. So we were doing all of the production and the catering, and there were so many moving parts. And on one event in particular, we had created an ice rink created a space that was the Russian Dasher for 800 guests. It was a charity event, and we had the Russian ice skating Olympians skating around on this amazing ice rink. But we also had Chrissy Hines from the Pretenders play that night, and the sound went down within sort of 15 minutes of her set. And it was just horrendous because obviously the client had paid so much for Chrissy to be there, and her set was also incredible. And in those moments, I think, people deal with things very differently, don't they? And I think crisis is, definitely one of those opportunities to either be calm or to completely lose your shit. And I chose the former. So yeah, managed to get in a very calm fashion the sound back up and going. We went to the catering tent and gave all of the guests ice cream and, created a little decoy and made everyone happy. But yeah, it was definitely one of those defining moments of, how are you going to deal with this, and how can you create a great situation out of a bad, a pretty catastrophic one. We were lucky to get the sound back up at all. But yeah, and I think I've definitely carried that through into Caravan and running the business as well. Obviously we're all aware of the challenges that I think you face running a business, and it's very up and down. And I think just keeping a steady mind and a steady hand on what you're up to and managing your stress is really important as a leader. And, you're not able, I don't think, to get the best out of people if you're, losing it yourself.
Yeah. Laura, you were talking about a situation where actually during an event something went wrong and how you managed it. But as an entrepreneur and as a leader, you might also face personal struggles within your journey as an entrepreneur. Can you recall such a situation where you say, okay, am I still on the right path? Is that the right decision I take? You recall something that?
For sure. I mean, there are so many. I think, one of the key things for me is, having a family at the same time as opening restaurants. And at one point we were doing restaurant baby. And, it's quite intense, being in that scenario and making sure that, every risk that you take is actually right for the family and right for the time that you're able to allocate to things. And I remember, being heavily pregnant when we were opening our King's Cross site, we were the first restaurant in the big King's Cross development in King's Cross in London. And, every single person that we spoke to sort of 5 to 10 sort of really close friends, entrepreneurs, and they all told us not to do that site, that it was, way too risky and, don't do it. You're absolutely crazy. And so that was a really kind of stressful moment of, is this going to completely sink everything that we've worked for and sink the family? And, so you do have to work through those moments and take the kind of measured risk to do stuff.
What did you do then? How did you manage that?
Well, I guess you either ignore it and just plow ahead.
Plow ahead.
Or,
double down.
Yeah, exactly. Double down, plow ahead. Or you do. I mean, I'm that balance, I guess, between I need the data, I need the information, in order to make an informed decision about whether we're going to take the risk or not. But, you don't want to get yourself into kind of, paralysis by, trying to triangulate every single possibility and eventuality and what have you. I think there's an element of you've just got to back yourself and go for it as well.
And how do you regain personal drive in such a situation? Your business needs your attention, your baby, your family needs your attention. Where did you get your personal energy from?
Well, I'm a very energetic person. So
climbing mountains,
we can feel that.
Exactly.
We can feel that.
So I don't have to dig too deep for energy, if I'm completely honest. Well, that said, I think it's really important for all of us. It's that whole, adage of put your face mask on first with the oxygen. You do have to look after yourself, and I've always been quite good at that. I'm not like overly selfish, but at the same time, I do think you need to make sure that I've always exercised, I eat well, I hydrate, all of that stuff that we know you need to do to look after yourself as a human. But equally, just knowing when you need to take, a bit of time out. I've always been really good at just jumping on a plane or, going for a massive walk and just taking that time out so that you've got the headspace to get back into it.
Yeah. How do you, within Caravan, within your company, culture seems to be very important for you, because we read that you actually wanted to make culture from good to great. Can you explain a little bit what are your core principles for culture within your company, how you empower your people, what you do there?
Yeah, so I think Chris Miles and I, when we founded the business 14 years ago, we didn't come from a background where, we had sort of created a business plan, written down what our purpose, our mission statements were, created our values, our core values, or anything like that. We actually only really did that sort of 2 or 3 years ago as a business. But what I think was always present for us was these core values that actually we've talked about right from the start, right from 14 years ago, and have sort of crystallized in the last couple of years with proper documents, and we've grown up a bit. But all welcome is one of our core principles. And really what that meant from the outset was not just the space that we wanted to create, which was that it was all welcome from a customer perspective, and you could come and dine whenever you wanted. You could have a coffee, you could have an espresso martini in the afternoon. All welcome also meant to us that we were open all day. So you could come in at any time and have a full restaurant experience at sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which really in London at that time was not possible. But really at the core of all welcome for us was about the team. And culture has always been super, super important to us. Chris Miles and I are all from New Zealand. So we were immigrants to the United Kingdom in the first place. And I think when you start a business where it's not your kind of hometown, you have a much more acute understanding of what it's like to be an outsider. And I think what you want to do is create a place where people feel like they've found a home and that they're welcome. And that's certainly what we wanted to do with our team. We don't get our team to wear uniforms very intentionally because we want them to bring themselves to work. And we just wanted to create a place where it was, like a home away from home for them. To date, I think we've got sort of over 60 nationalities represented at Caravan, and we really, really encourage diversity. It's a really important component for us as a business. But just creating that culture of belonging, I think, is really what we wanted to do from the outset.
Yeah.
Victor, I need to jump in here because we got the live feed, Laura, for questions. We asked somebody who was already as a guest here to send us questions for you, and one particularly just came in 4 minutes ago, and one fits very strong to what you said. And it says, What difficulties have you faced as a result of championing the idea, letting your staff be themselves? Are there times when that has had turned against you?
That's a really, really good question. So I think what we ended up having to do with regards to uniform is wrap a little bit of structure around it. Another one of our core values is no boundaries. But of course, as we all know, there have to be some boundaries. It's the mindset that we love, but we do need some rules. And a lot of people decided they wanted to wear football shirts and that created a bit of friction. We've had a few like near kind of bust ups on the team as a result of football shirt wearing. So that had to be next. Yeah, exactly. But I think it's challenging, isn't it, these days? We all have to, I think, remember to try and see the world through the lens of the people that are coming before you and the generations that are coming before you. Otherwise, we're just ancient and irrelevant, frankly. And, they definitely approach diversity, being yourself, speaking your mind in a much different way, perhaps from my generation. And that can be challenging to navigate sometimes. But it's something that I think, given that it's the lion's share of our workforce these days, you have to embrace and you have to educate yourself. And we certainly definitely embrace it at Caravan, although, it can be challenging sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But sorry, but it was so I had to take that because it was almost a live feed.
Yeah, excellent. No, I only had one more question, Laura, because Victor Luger from Big Mama, he actually told us, he actually said, and I quote him, "Do you know what creates culture in a company?" And then he said, "Success." Would you agree to that? And if so, what does success mean for you personally and for your team?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And it's interesting because we had a wonderful woman who came to work for us for a while from the fantastic Camden Town Brewery, Jasper Cuppage, who founded that business as a good friend. And that was a hugely, hugely successful business and just went from strength to strength. I mean, not from the lack of hard work and a real, focus. But the culture at Camden was absolutely phenomenal. And I do attribute that to the fact that they were just winning the whole time. There was just constant success and constant winning through the P&L, through the, economics of the business, but also just because, they were just winning national accounts and it was just a really thriving environment. So I think success definitely helps with culture, probably one of the most important components. And I think that was really challenging with COVID and coming out of COVID. And, your sales have kind of courted and, it's difficult to kind of continue that drive and continue that culture forward. But I also think it's not just success. I think it's as much of having a common purpose and a common goal. And some people say a common enemy is the thing that really unites people. Yeah. I prefer to be more positive. I'm a natural optimist. I just think a positive common goal also really, really supports a great company culture.
Yeah.
But I think with this common enemy, I'm not sure if it's enemy, but I think like a strong competitor in the same field, as long as it is like sportlich, as we say in German, like kind of with fair measurements, competitive. I think it can create like a huge kind of drive to say like, can we open more? Can we be better? Can we like you mentioned before with the football shirts? I mean, maybe it went too much extreme in your team, but this competition between two teams to improve can be strong. I want to switch to the coffee topic because I see us all drinking coffee with our mugs here in early morning. You're not just a restaurant business. As I said in the intro, you're coffee roastery and you run a quite sizable roastery in the north of London. And you also, I found a quote where you say like selling coffee is much more profitable than running restaurants. So let me challenge you here. Why you then run restaurants and not just focus on running the roastery? What is it? Why you think these two legs you're standing on, the coffee roasting and the restaurant is so important for the brand and the company?
Yeah, I'm not sure when you when you got that quote from Mario, because the C price is at an all-time high right now. So, is it more profitable? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I guess the reason that we wanted to, just stepping right back to the start, that we wanted to start the coffee business, and we started at the same time as the all-day dining. It's because when we got to London, I mean, I think a lot of concepts are driven from identifying an opportunity and a gap in the market. And when we first got to London, which was sort of 23 years ago, there was Starbucks, Costa, Nero, etc., but not really the type of craft or specialty coffee that we had in New Zealand, which we'd sort of had since the 80s. So immediately we saw there was a gap in the market for that type of specialty coffee experience, not only the importance of the quality of where the beans have come from and the provenance, but also the way it was executed in the restaurant environment. And I think that's why, it's become a very sort of symbiotic part of the brand. And there's been, as there is with all businesses, or, my business certainly, maybe not others, but there have been like really great periods, but also periods where we've been lucky to sort of break even for many reasons, and over the pandemic being one of them. But we've decided obviously to keep the coffee alive because it is such an important part of what we do. But I think the interesting thing that we've sort of had to really grow up with along the way is, it is a very different thing running an FMCG brand versus a hospitality business. It has lots of different mindsets and challenges that you have to sort of apply to each business. And that's actually been a really amazing learning experience for us. But yeah, I think we definitely want to keep them going together, but then it's not without its challenges. It is essentially like we're running two separate businesses in a way.
Mm. And Laura, as you're now also B-Corp, but in all the materials on your website, like the sourcing is very important for you. You said like you try to source more than 50% of your coffee from women-led farms. You obviously try to buy a certain price. How can we really ensure that like whatever we have in our cup here is not just good and indulgent, but also fair? And how do you try to educate your consumers, your guests, that this also has a certain price? Yeah, I mean, everybody says I want to have a sustainable coffee and I want everybody to be happy, etc. But then comes the bill, and then it just costs more than the regular coffee in the supermarket. How do you do that? Kind of, A, how do you ensure the sourcing, and B, how you build this strong storytelling to be able to create the awareness and charge more, that you're also able to pay for that?
Yeah, well, from the sourcing perspective, that's obviously critical to being a specialty coffee roaster, and the majority, I would say sort of 95% of our coffee is sourced directly with the farmers at farm level. And I think that's really important because it means that you've got that direct relationship. You're able to make sure that the price that you're paying is it's well beyond, for example, fair trade or any of the other kind of the metrics that people apply to coffee. And you've got that direct relationship. And, that's obviously really important when we're talking about the female farmer producer program that we created 4 years ago, where we've committed to sourcing 50% of all of our coffee from female cooperatives. We pay an extra 10 pence on every kilogram, so that goes back into the cooperatives and back into, resource for, ensuring that female farmers and female cooperatives have, as much as possible, because obviously they represent, I think, 75% of coffee pickers, but they only own sort of 20% of farms, or have sort of agency over their own finances. So that's something that we're really working hard to try and facilitate and help. And then sort of our mantra at the moment, and it's been thus for the last couple of years, is great coffee made easy. And I think just talking about price and what we're trying to achieve as a coffee business is we never started out to create this kind of mystique or, for it not to be accessible to people, but we wanted the coffee to be amazingly sourced, really, really carefully roasted at our coffee roastery in North London. So we kind of do all the hard work, and then it's, you know, easy for you we've actually started selling it in Waitrose recently. So that's been a really exciting thing for us. And I just think for me, it actually just comes back to as soon as you try, especially a cup of coffee, then that's the sales pitch right there. It's very difficult, I think, to go back after you've tried really great coffee to, you know, Robusta, you know. So
true. I really started traveling with coffee because I didn't want to be depending on like a hotel or a city where I don't know the right coffee to find. And now especially I'm in Sri Lanka since almost a year. And we travel from one family to the other with our coffee, sourced by the way in Sri Lanka, because it was before it changed to become the biggest tea export. It was actually one of the biggest coffee exporter. But anyway, that's another story. Laura, in that research, which sometimes seemed to be wrong, which I did about you, but let's see if I get it right now. You were asked about bad decisions. And you said, I'm not sure if you said it was your bad decision, but you said worst decisions is when you allow over time profit to become more important than values. And you shared before with Florian that you built the business more on intrinsic values and then you formalize them, but they always have been there. How do you actually protect these values? Because you also have you set up the business, 3 of you, and then you have a private equity partner, and you're probably also looking for more in the future to have money to grow. And with everybody joining and every stakeholder and every valuation, the profit pressure kind of increases. How do you protect that set of values, that it's not comes to the decision where a financial KPI is more important than a value or the set of values?
It's a great question. And I can answer honestly by saying that we protected the value very easily for the first however long, because to be perfectly honest, we just weren't that great at the commercial side. And that's one way of protecting it, is just not really being very good at, you know, making sure that you're a super profitable business. And I think that's just because like I said at the start, where Chris Miles and I come from, we're not sort of, we haven't come through finance background. We're not ex-MBAs. We worked in restaurants. Excuse me. We've grown up in restaurants. And so, yeah, I think that side of it actually came quite late in the piece for us. No, I'm really proud to say that we are not only a business that really cares about all of our core values, but also, you know, profitable and commercially successful now. But it has been a journey and a road for us to take. And I think just because fundamentally we don't come from that background, we come from the background where we just cared about creating a really beautiful business that, you know, people felt at home in. It's unlikely that we will allow ourselves to focus on a financial KPI beyond something else. But we do absolutely recognize that in order to sustain the business, in order to, you know, keep everyone's jobs safe, in order to keep growing, in order to give opportunity to our team members, and, you know, they want to grow with us, that we have to be commercially successful. And we've got so much better at that. And, you know, even more improvements that we're making in the business. And I think for me, critically, it's also about making sure that the commercial decisions you make, the financial decisions you make, don't adversely affect your team members and don't adversely affect the customer experience. Because there's so much that you can do to make a business really successful that doesn't touch the customer experience. And I think that's where we've really focused in on over the last 2 years, particularly.
And you talked now a lot about decision making. You set up the business, 3 of you, and then you got later on a private equity. You have like 3 kind of equal founders, with you as the front face, at least, or the front communicator, and then the private equity. Is there any kind of, or if there's a difficult situation, I'm sure over 20 years you're not always aligned. How do you make decisions in this constellation of 3 co-founders and 1 private equity? What's kind of the set of rules or understanding on how to make a decision in a difficult frame or in
pouring coffee for Chris. Um, sorry, how do we make decisions between the three of us?
Yes, the overall constellation, because you have three co-founders and a private equity investor. So kind of two sets of cards, so to say. And if you're not aligned or if it's a tricky one, how do you form that decision?
So we very intentionally took on a minority private equity investor to start off with. It was our first foray into private equity, and it's been great. It's been a 7-year journey. It's enabled us to continue to really steadily grow. But by virtue of the fact that they are minority, it does mean that, there's no sort of overarching. And again, that has meant, and I think that's critical as well, that whilst we've been growing the business, we haven't had an overly financial sort of decision maker at the table from our PE partner. Obviously, we all want to get returns for every stakeholder. That's critical as well. But it has just meant that we're able to have, conversations, I think, that are not just purely about, the financial return that a decision might make. As far as Chris, Miles and I, that's been quite the journey over the years as well. And to start off with, we definitely, totally standing all over each other's feet and whatever the phrase is. And it took us quite a long time to get to a place where it's like, oh, okay, like you're doing that. Like we had to get our lanes sorted out. And we definitely have the lanes sorted out now. And I would joke, and the others would probably agree, that if there's a tough decision to be made, it's normally what I say.
That's good. If everybody knows and is aligned, it's always important. We hear that in all the interviews, Flo, and we do when especially it becomes close to family and brothers and whatever. They always say at the end of the day, there need to be one decision maker. Anyway, Florian, I interrupted you. You wanted to continue.
No, I just, because we always ask that also our guest, Laura, apart from running your business and everything that is going on, is there anything that keeps you up at night? Is there anything that concerns you right now in the world, in your business? Because it's also, we want to talk about doubts and how to overcome doubts, and it's a tough time sometimes out there. How do you see that? Is there anything?
Oh, definitely. I mean, so many. And I think dealing with the doubts and the anxiety, I think anxiety is something that, I definitely feel a lot. It's like, am I making the right decision for the business? And, and for its people, I think our people is the thing that kind of keeps me up a lot. It's really tough in London. It's, tough economic climate. I think a lot about, how we can do the best for our people as well. But yeah, just sort of personally, I'm always, I really take on board the decision making in the business, very seriously. And so I do give myself a lot of anxiety I second guess myself a lot. And as to, whether I have made the right call on something. And I think you're always, it feels like at the moment, you're just always at a crossroads of, I could go that way, or I could go that way. I could decide to grow, or I could, consolidate and just make sure the core base of the business is really, really strong. And just making those decisions. Obviously, we've just made a huge one, which is opening outside of London for the first time. And it's, I think business is a lot about timing as well, isn't it? It's like, have I got the right time for this particular decision to land well? And so, I definitely, it's just sort of, it's not a specific thing really. It's just, it is decision making is have I, I get anxious about, have I made the right call?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you are in such a situation, do you consult either with your partners, Chris and Miles, or how do you come to a decision? What actually gives you the trust that you are doing the right decision?
Yeah. I mean, I joke that it's me that makes the decisions. It's three of us absolutely that do it. And we are like a really close knit unit in that regard. And I feel very lucky that I have two business partners because, a lot of people found their businesses themselves. And we are a really brilliant bouncing board off each other. So we've got a WhatsApp group that is in constant flow of, things that are happening in the business that need to be improved, this, that, and the other, but also just as a kind of, in a way, event. For, frustrations and like, why did we do that? Should we have done this? And we're really supportive to each other like that. So in that sense, I very much feel like we've got a very supportive leadership scenario for the three of us.
Sounds good. Kathy Johnson from UAE, we had her on the show. She's running a chocolate company. She said, "Find yourself a work therapist," and we actually heard that you. I'm not sure if that's the same, but you founded an entrepreneurial circle within London where you gathered together with other entrepreneurs. Can you tell us something about that? What is this club, or what is it?
It's well, yeah, people do see it as a bit of a club, actually, because you have to be, and we were really clear on this. I founded this with Charlie Carroll from Flatiron in the wonderful Devonshire pub in London, and Tom Elliott from Pizza Pilgrims, who I think you guys have had on the show, actually.
Yeah.
On the podcast.
He told us about it. He was
did he?
But he said Laura is allowed to tell you more. He just mentioned it in the off air, even like not on air, but we need to know more.
Of course, and you will. Yeah, so it's called Lost and Founded, which I think is, a particularly relevant name for hospitality entrepreneurs. And essentially, you have to be a hospitality founder to come to the dinners, and they're really cool because, again, like you say, you have to have people that you can bounce stuff off, but also people who have that unique experience of actually understanding what it's like to found a hospitality business, and that is unique. If you haven't actually founded your own business, then it's different. Right. And we have these wonderful informal dinners where we all cook for each other. And there's, maximum 40 people at each dinner. They're really oversubscribed. We've got a wait list for the next one, which is on the 15th of October. And they've just been fantastic for, and we really encourage young founders to come along as well, like people who are just started their first concept, their first restaurant. And it's a great opportunity for them to like hang out with people who have got, 30 restaurants. And so yeah, it's been really cool. We founded it about 3 years ago, I think now.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Laura, what we have in common here, when we set up this podcast at the beginning of the year, we also said we will do it only entrepreneurs and only our industry, because we felt that there's a certain nuance, and it's even the subtitle of our podcast, Entrepreneurs Only. And we're sharing this knowledge, and we get a lot of kind of feedback from young founders who, as you said, are stuck somehow, and always look up to the heroes of our industry, to the big names we had on our show, including you now. And they all look up and say, these guys, like, they make everything right. They never struggle. It all looks like blue skies. And that was one of our missions, to say, let's look behind that story. Let's look behind a guy who opened a couple of 100 restaurants and you think everything is sunshine. Where are the doubts? Where are the struggles? And that helps a lot. And we're trying to kind of increase or grow this community by issuing white papers and learnings and maybe future seminars with that purpose, very focused on hospitality. So we need to talk offline what we can do here together, because I think the missions are aligned, but we're missing the food. So we maybe get the food from you and
exactly.
contribute some content.
You can put us on the wait list.
Yes, exactly.
I love that name. We should have taken that for our podcast, Florian. Lost and Found.
Lost and Found.
Maybe better than From Doubt to Tribe. I'm not sure. Have you trademarked that, Laura? Or can you still
I don't know. I'm going to get Tom or Charlie onto it immediately.
But Laura, coming back to that Lost and Founders group, because you said there you specifically invite young entrepreneurs and young founders. So, and we often ask that in that show as well. So what advice do you give those people who are young, who are struggling, who don't see the right path in front of them, who are hitting roadblocks? Do you have a toolkit for those kids?
I mean, yeah, it kind of depends on where they're at in the journey and what they're struggling with. I mean, from my perspective, one thing I really focus in on doing, and I think it's quite helpful when you're founding a business, is to block the noise out and to not look too much at what other people are doing. Because, you've got sort of all this trade press that's coming out daily, kind of hourly sometimes. And, so-and-so's just done this deal and, da-da-da-da-da. And I think it can be really unhelpful in a way, to focus too much on what others are up to. And so just if you really believe in your concept and you believe that you've got something that's special, to just go for it and trust yourself and trust your instincts and not worry too much about what other people are up to. And that's something that I'm sort of telling myself as I'm talking, because it's difficult to block the noise out. And then just play the long game as well. Things are not going to necessarily go right in the short term at every sort of obstacle, at every crossroads. Start with the end in mind. We all hear a lot about that in business is, what's your goal? What's your end goal with it? Make sure it's right from your business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And I think that's something that as founders, we sort of forget about is like, what are we actually wanting to achieve out of this? Like, what's our life goal, our end goal with it? And just, play the long game, I think, rather than sort of focus on short-term goals and objectives too much. And just, I think just believe in yourself as well. It's really hard sometimes, especially when you're sitting in a room with, and I've been that person, when we first founded Caravan, where I was just in awe of everyone, and I still am. There are so many people doing such brilliant things in our sector. But just take and just meet as many people as you can as well. And that's why I think the Lost and Founded is so brilliant, is it brings everyone together. Every week I will meet with somebody new. I just think you learn so much from just talking to people. I think our industry is so generous with how people are always willing to have a coffee or a lunch or whatever. Just keep talking to people as much as possible.
I just want to
so true.
Just want to comment one thing, because I think that is important, and it was more like a side note from what you said. But when playing the long game, it's personal and business goal. And I think entrepreneurs and founders, I mean, even though if you want to run a successful business, it's also always about yourself, what you want to achieve by yourself. And so I think the personal component within that and realizing that is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I do emphasize that, because I think sometimes we get lost in our businesses, and then you forget to look after yourself and what you were trying to achieve out of that business. Like I said, I get anxious and stay awake at night sometimes thinking about our people so much. And then it's like, well, hang on a minute, what's right for me? I founded this business, what is actually right for me going forward? It's important to balance.
We have one quote which fits very much what you said. If there's one thing most our guests have in common, they treat the business like they treat themselves. Great leadership apparently comes from within. So kind of
absolutely.
Very much. What I really liked about this comment you made, I noted down like B2B social media, because like the normal social media is distractive, but I never saw from that angle. Gave me completely new thought that all this Propel and food service and what are others doing and the LinkedIn profiles of others, they can create a lot of noise and anxiety. So as unhealthy as the private social media addiction is, I think that was a very, very valid point, especially as a young founder, because you could be very impatient and say like, why haven't I opened the other store, the other coffee shop? So I really like that. I want to end with like a personal view back. If you would look at this 2.0 version of yourself, let's say I don't want to say girl, but the young lady coming to London now, to the more mature 4.0-ish version of yourself, how would this young woman look up or look towards this 4.0 version? What would she see now in herself? What is this 20, 30 years of growth for that young lady?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a lot calmer these days than I used to be, which isn't saying very much because I'm not a particularly calm person. But I've learned, I think when I first, and this is specific and unique, I think, to like at the diversity point and being a woman in business. Particularly the hospitality sector, it's very male dominated still to this day, particularly at leadership level. I used to approach things in a very combative way. which is sort of like, my mother is a flaming feminist, I call her. I come from, on her side of the family, I come from a family of very, very strong women. And I think the way I approached that was to be very combative, like I said, and really sort of try and fight the fight at every opportunity, but in quite a sort of, I mean, not aggressive, but just, perhaps not a collaborative way as possible. And I think these days I'm a much sort of calmer person, and I realize that, in order to get your point across, there are different ways that you can approach that. And you can perhaps do it with a bit more of a smile on your face, and which I generally have a smile on my face, but not when I'm talking about issues like diversity and feminism. But yeah, and I think that kind of growth and just being more comfortable in your skin, and just having a bit more confidence in who you are as a person. Definitely that 20-year-old would be quite impressed with the growth and the journey there.
So coffee seems to give a lot of energy. And when she was talking about herself like 25, 30 years ago, and saying that she's now much more calmer. So that's quite an energy boost in the early morning.
Right.
So let's compare notes, Florian. What do you have noted down?
I mean, speaking of energy, and then bringing up the first note, I have slowing down the minds. It doesn't really go in line with that, but it was more in or towards the idea of finding headspace when we talked about her hiking and climbing adventures, and that she actually needs that to clear her mind and to wonder about questions she might have in her actual business. So slowing down the mind.
Slowing down the mind, finding the headspace. Then there was the plower head. Yes. And then I have like that she said you need to do whatever is necessary in terms of value creation and empower a team to get the best out of people. So her business very much built on the culture she shared, which was first like really intrinsic and by gut feel, but she formalized later really to build that strong culture and set of values. But in that context, she said, nevertheless, as a leader, she said, you need to take care of yourself first. And she gave this quote from every flight we know, where it says, like, in terms of emergency, take care of yourself first before you help others. And she said she has been becoming good in that, taking the time out, focusing on her, seeing what her body needs, that she can stay a very strong and good leader. I like that kind of. It's not a contradiction. It's actually a precondition to take care of people.
Yeah, what I would like to add when it comes to her culture, that she said we have her principle is all welcome, and this is actually also this no boundaries mindset she implemented into her company together with her partners Chris and Miles. So it's really strong.
But you see, she said that you need to have some boundaries, and she gave this example with the football shirts, which has created a fight. But then also what she shared is like the next generation. We're talking about leaders here now in the late 40s, and saying like, okay, this Caravan is very strong to attract the young people, 20, 25 to work. But she said you need to really trying to understand, or she helped understanding what their values is. They're much more outspoken, much more speaking their mind, and you need to create a culture which allows, but that also set a strong set of values to kind of get that in place. We have taken it. What else we have learned?
I have in that context. She also mentioned that now they have that success and common purpose and common goals are very important. She also said a common enemy to fight against and go towards a common goal together and found your culture on that. But we were also talking about values. So when it comes to values and how they started the business, what are your notes on that?
I think what I had at the beginning when I said, like, what's the contradiction on values versus profit? And she was laughing and said, at the beginning, we've been so bad with our commercials, so there was actually No problem. What is more important, the commercials or the values, because it was all value driven. But it seems they have been growing up quite a lot on that thing. Also, when it comes to being a minority investor, and I think their view on profit shifted.
Yeah, it developed quite interestingly through their journey when values came first and then profit came, and now actually goes profit and value goes hand in hand. She said we protected the values, but at the same time, at a certain point, we needed and wanted to be profitable, and we have to create the background to create a beautiful business. We have to be commercially successful to enable values growth and the development of our people. Because if you are not profitable, you can have whatever values you want, you will not grow, and you will not be able to develop further yourself, 100%. Your business, your staff.
And you need also room to grow. You need the good assistant restaurant manager to be the restaurant manager in the next restaurant, and the good team leader to be the good assistant restaurant manager in the next one. So you need the room to grow. And she was also talking about her growth and her doubts and anxiety. I think she was the first guest on our show which used the word anxiety as also a nuance of doubt. And she said, especially in tough times and through economic crisis and through pandemics, she's very she seems to be very free-spirited and positive, but she shared that she had a lot of second guesses herself, because she's thinking do I make the right decision? Should I focus more on growth? Should I consolidate? What is the timing of the decision? Because she said, even if the decision is the right one, you need to get the timing right. And for them, it was a big decision to open another city within UK. They have been focusing so far on London, and the decision to open such a big space in Manchester. And I think she very much shared this anxiety level for her as a leader.
Absolutely. Let's go to her advice for young entrepreneurs.
That was strong. Yes,
that was really strong. Block the noise out.
I love that. That's my favorite nuance of that one, because we all aware of this social media addiction and how looking on other relationships and lives make us kind of doubting or jealous and say everybody's happy, but I'm not. But I never saw this nuance on the B2B social media, where we look at Propel and food service and when you have just been in Amsterdam at the summit, and you hear all these people on stage and saying we open 200 restaurants and 300 restaurants and 400 restaurants, and not get really the anxiety that you miss something out. And she said you need to trust yourself, focus on yourself.
Yeah, and the other way around. Don't focus too much on others, and then trust yourself.
Block the noise.
And trust your instincts. Because this is why you started as an entrepreneur, because you had a vision and an idea, and of course you're facing doubts and troubles. That's what all this podcast is about. But to recalibrate again, and that was it was really on point. I played the long game.
I think that definitely makes it in the next white. This block the noise definitely makes it in the next white paper. Play the long game. Yeah, another very strong one. Kind of also related. Yeah, block the noise. Focus on your instinct. Play the long game. Not everything works out at the short time, she said. Yeah, get the direction right. So what else?
And also in that context, also the balance between your personal and your business goals, because they also go hand in hand. And then she said,
believe in yourself,
meet other people and talk to them. Talk a lot, meet a lot of people, have a cup of coffee, of course.
Exchange. And go to the Lost and Founded. Lost and Founded event. What a great initiative between the founder of Flatiron herself and Tom Elliott, the Pizza Pilgrim founder, who was with us on the show. Lost and Founded, only hospitality founders, maximum 40, always oversubscribe, and they cook for each other and help each other. And she also shared, and that's also why we're doing the point, is strong community within our industry to really share and help and seek for advice. So we definitely need to sneak into this Lost and Founded. If all these people cook. Yeah, definitely. So Laura, we're gonna join you and
put us on the wait list.
put us on the waiting list. That was fun, Florian.
Yeah.
And we finished a cup of coffee. Have a great day.
You
Enjoy
too.
the morning in Hamburg. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we did. But sharing is not just caring. It is also empowering. So recommend this podcast to fellow entrepreneurs who might need a dose of inspiration. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss out on future episodes. Thank you for being part of the community from Doubt to Drive Entrepreneurs Only. Mario and Florian are already gearing up for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, stay driven, and we'll be back next week.